All right, let's do this. Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive into Show Your Work by Austin Kleon.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
It is. We are going to break down this book, and I'm so excited. I feel like it's going to be incredibly helpful for, honestly, anyone, no matter what they do, whether you're a programmer or a musician or uh, a teacher. It's
Yeah.
just full of so much wisdom. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the stage a little bit. We're talking about show your work, and we're really trying to get to the heart of how can people apply these ideas to their own lives. And right off the bat, Cleon kind of tackles this myth of the lone genius.
Oh, absolutely. And it is a myth.
It
He
is.
really emphasizes this idea of the genius. Like,
Mhm.
your creativity isn't something that just happens in isolation. It's about being part of a connected environment.
Mhm.
It's about collaboration and feeding off the energy of other people.
Okay, yeah, the seniors.
Yeah.
But for someone who, maybe struggles with that feeling of like, I need to be this brilliant, solitary creator, how do we kind of break free from that?
I think it helps to think of it like your creativity is a plant,
Right.
and that plant needs the right environment to thrive. It
Yeah.
needs sunlight, the right soil, and the right community. Right?
Okay. I like that. Like the scenius is the garden where your creativity can bloom.
Exactly. You don't have to be the lone genius toiling away in a dark room. You can be part of a vibrant ecosystem where ideas are shared, feedback is given, and, everyone benefits.
It makes it a lot less intimidating too, right?
For sure.
Like you're not expected to have all the answers. You're just contributing your unique piece to the puzzle.
And that's what makes it so powerful. Like, think about astronaut Chris Hadfield. Remember how he used social media to connect with people while he was in space?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was sharing videos of himself doing everyday things like brushing his teeth.
In zero gravity. He was incredible.
It was.
And, it wasn't just about the science. He was showing the human side of space exploration.
Right. He made it relatable. And I think that's kind of what Cleon is getting at when he says to focus on the process, not just the product.
He is.
It's about taking people behind the scenes, letting them see the messy middle and the journey. But honestly, what's the real value in that?
Well, for starters, it makes the whole creative process less intimidating, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, instead of feeling pressured to present a perfect final product, you're showing the evolution of your work, the stumbles, the experiments, the breakthroughs.
And you're inviting others to be part of that journey with you, which, let's be real, the creative process can be pretty lonely.
Very true. And when you share your process, you're also giving others valuable insights.
Mhm.
Think about it, a programmer sharing a coding problem they're working on, a chef showing their plating technique,
Mm.
a musician, maybe, sharing a snippet of a new song.
It's like each little piece you share becomes a potential learning opportunity for someone else.
Yeah, it's like we're all learning from each other.
And that's kind of what we're doing right now with this book. But, Cleon really emphasizes those small, consistent actions, right? The daily dispatches, as he calls them.
Oh, he does. He's a big believer in showing up regularly.
But is there a risk of sharing too much? Like giving away our best ideas before they're fully formed?
It's a valid concern, but I think Cleon addresses that pretty directly.
Okay, good.
It's about being intentional. You get to decide what to share, when to share it, and with whom. It's about finding a balance between being open and protective.
So it's not just like a brain dump of every random thought.
No,
There's a strategy to it.
absolutely. Think of it like you're creating a snowball effect with your work. Each little piece you share adds momentum.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we know what's actually worth sharing?
That's a good question.
Mm.
I had a professor in college who had this thing he called the so what test.
I love that.
Basically, every piece of writing had to answer that question. Why should anyone care?
Okay, so we should apply that to what we share online too, right?
Absolutely. Is this helpful? Is it entertaining? Does it offer a glimpse into your process or spark new ideas?
So respect your audience's time and attention. Don't just add to the noise.
Right. And this brings us to another really cool concept that Cleon introduces, stock and flow.
Stock and flow. Okay, break that down for me.
So think of your flow as all those daily dispatches, all those behind-the-scenes glimpses you share, the constant stream of your creative output.
Okay, got it.
Your stock is the larger body of work that you build over time from all those little pieces.
So it's like the daily sharing is planting seeds, and over time, those seeds grow into a flourishing garden, which becomes your stock.
Exactly.
Wow, I love that. So the small, consistent actions really add up to something bigger over time.
They do. And what's really cool is that you can revisit your flow, Look back at those seeds you've planted and see what's resonated.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe certain themes keep popping up or certain pieces really connect with your audience. You can use those insights to inform your future work.
That's so smart. It's like mining your creative history for gold. Okay, so where do we showcase all this amazing stock?
Well, Cleon is a big advocate for having your own website.
Okay, so not just relying on social media.
Right. While social media is great for connecting and sharing, it's important to remember you're playing on someone else's field.
That's true. Algorithms change, platforms come and go. You're not really in control.
Exactly. But your website, that's your domain. You have complete control over the content, the design, the whole experience.
It's like building your own house versus renting an apartment, right?
Yes, you have the freedom to customize and make it truly your own.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal, but what about all the people who are already on those social media platforms?
Well, Kleon actually quotes Patti Smith, who got some great advice from William Burroughs. He said, build a good name, keep your name clean, don't make compromises, and, don't worry about being super successful or rich.
Just focus on doing good work.
Exactly. If you build a good name, eventually that name will be its own currency.
I love that. It's not about chasing fleeting trends. It's about building something with integrity that reflects your unique vision.
Right. Your website becomes a hub for everything you create, a showcase for your stock, and a place where people can connect with you directly.
Okay, so we're sharing our process, we're building our stock, and creating this online home base. But Cleon also talks about sharing our influences, right?
Oh, absolutely. He believes that what we're inspired by is just as important as the work we create ourselves.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, he connects it to this historical concept of cabinets of curiosities. These were collections of, objects and artifacts that people would display to kind of reveal their interests and tastes.
Cabinets of curiosities. That sounds
They
fascinating.
were. And Cleon suggests we think of our online presence as a kind of digital cabinet of curiosities.
Okay, I like that. So it's like what we share online, the books we recommend, the music we listen to, the art we love, all these things offer a glimpse into what inspires us.
Exactly. It's like giving people a peek into your creative DNA, the ingredients that shape your thinking.
I love that. It's not just about showcasing our own work. It's about acknowledging and celebrating the things that fuel our creative fire. And you know what? It also makes me think that our influences can come from anywhere, right?
Absolutely. And they don't have to be, highbrow or traditional. Cleon actually shares this amazing example of a trash museum created by a New York City garbage collector.
Wait, a trash museum?
Yeah, this guy collected all sorts of interesting objects he found on his route, turning trash into art.
Wow, that's amazing. It just shows that inspiration can be found in the most unexpected places.
It's a great reminder to be curious, explore different perspectives, and see the beauty in the unexpected.
So, are you saying we should all start collecting trash now?
Maybe not, but maybe take a closer look at what you're naturally drawn to, the things that make you think differently.
That's such great advice. But okay, so we've got all this stuff to share, this process, these influences, but how do we actually make our message heard in this crazy online world?
Well, that's where the art of storytelling comes in. Cleon really emphasizes the importance of crafting compelling narratives.
Oh, yeah. Stories are powerful, but how do we get better at telling them?
Cleon suggests we think about the basic structure of a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
Or, as he puts it, a problem, the work, and the solution. And this can be applied to almost anything. Think about a project you're working on. What challenges are you facing? What steps are you taking to overcome them? And what outcome are you hoping to achieve?
That's a great framework. So even a simple project can be framed as a story.
Exactly. It helps people connect with your work on a deeper level.
Okay, that's super helpful. But, let's talk about the flip side. What about dealing with negativity? I mean, putting yourself out there can be scary.
Yeah, it's definitely a vulnerability.
You're opening yourself up to criticism. So how do we handle that?
Cleon talks about this idea of strengthening your neck. And by that, he means getting more comfortable with sharing by sharing more.
So the more you do it, the less scary it becomes.
Right. But also, you have to remember that you're not your work.
That's a good point. It's easy to take criticism of our work personally.
It is, but it's
Huh.
important to separate your sense of self from the things you create.
Okay. But what about those truly nasty comments? How do we deal with those?
Well, Cleon reminds us that we have the power to curate our online experience.
Right. We get to choose who we engage with.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to use the block button, delete comments, protect your space.
It's like self-care for your creative well-being.
It is.
Yeah.
And often the harshest critic is the one in our own heads.
Oh, I know that voice all too well. The one that says we're not good enough, that our work isn't worthy of sharing.
Cleon encourages us to be mindful of that inner troll and to challenge those negative thoughts.
So be kind to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears for a second and talk about ambition, because I think Cleon has a really interesting take on this.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from it at all. He actually embraces it, right?
He does, and I think it's refreshing because ambition often gets a bad rap.
Right. Like, it's seen as something selfish or greedy.
But Cleon sees ambition as a natural part of the creative process. It's what drives us to do our best work and to share it with the world.
I love that. So how do we balance that ambition with staying true to ourselves?
Well, Cleon suggests that we get really clear on what success means to us.
Define our own version of it.
Exactly. Is it about financial reward, critical acclaim, reaching a wider audience, or simply creating work that we're proud of?
Once you know what you're aiming for, it becomes easier to make choices that support that vision.
And that includes saying no to opportunities that don't align with your goals.
That can be tough, but so important.
It is. And, Cleon reminds us that success isn't a zero-sum game.
Right. Someone else's success doesn't diminish our own.
Exactly. In fact, by supporting each other, we can all achieve greater things.
It's like creating a rising tide that lifts all boats.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about sharing our work, dealing with criticism, embracing ambition. But what about when the going gets tough? Those inevitable moments of self-doubt and discouragement.
Oh, those are the worst. How do we deal with those?
Cleon emphasizes the importance of persistence, of sticking with it, even when it feels hard.
Okay, I like that. But, sometimes we need to take a break too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Cleon is a big believer in the power of sabbaticals, those intentional periods of rest and renewal.
Yes.
He says even if you can't take a year off, you can incorporate mini sabbaticals into your life.
Like taking a few hours to disconnect, go for a walk, read a book.
Exactly. Anything that helps you recharge and come back to your work with fresh eyes.
That's so important. This whole conversation has been so insightful. But before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, is there anything else you want to highlight from this section?
I think it's crucial to remember that Cleon sees creativity as a lifelong journey.
Oh, yeah. It's not about reaching a destination.
It's about embracing the process of learning and growing and constantly pushing yourself outside your comfort zone.
I love that.
And that's why lifelong learning is so important.
Absolutely. Whether we're reading a book, taking a class, or simply having a conversation with someone who has a different perspective.
Right. It's about staying curious, challenging our assumptions, and expanding our horizons.
That's a great reminder.
And, one of the most beautiful things about Cleon's approach is that he sees creativity as a force for good.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about connecting, learning, growing, and making a positive impact on the world.
This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like my mind is buzzing with new ideas and possibilities.
Me too.
So before we move on to the next part of the book, what are some key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with from this first part?
First and foremost, remember you're not alone. Creativity thrives in connection. Find your tribe, your genius, and embrace the power of collaboration.
And don't be afraid to share your process. Show the messy middle, the stumbles, the breakthroughs.
Absolutely. And remember the so what test. Share with intention, always asking yourself how your work can benefit others. And finally, embrace the journey.
Creativity is a marathon, not a sprint. It's full of ups and downs, but it's a journey worth taking.
Put yourself out there, share your gifts with the world, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into Show Your Work.
Okay, so as we dig a little deeper into Cleon's Show Your Work, one thing that really stands out to me is his emphasis on being a fan. Like he says, if you want fans, you got to be a fan first.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. But what does that actually look like, Like
Yeah.
in real life?
It's about, well, engaging with the work of others, like really being part of the community, contributing to the creative conversation. It's about celebrating the work that inspires you.
Okay, so it's more than just like passively consuming content.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's about being an active participant, like being that supportive audience member you'd want for yourself.
Yeah, I get that. And that actually ties in nicely with Cleon's point about giving credit where credit is due.
Oh, absolutely. Attribution is so important, especially in this digital age where it's so easy to copy and paste and share things without even thinking about where they came from.
Yeah, it's easy to forget sometimes in the heat of the moment, you know. You find something cool, you're excited to share it, but you don't always take that extra step to credit the creator.
But it's such an important step, wouldn't you say? I mean, attribution is an act of generosity, both to the original creator and to your audience.
Yeah.
By providing context and links, you're not just sharing a piece of content, you're sharing a story, a connection, a pathway to deeper exploration.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. And you know what? It also adds value to the work, right?
It does. Kleon uses the analogy of art forgery.
Mm.
You know, a painting might look identical to the original, but its value changes completely once you know it's fake.
That's a great point. It's like the story behind something gives it meaning and authenticity.
Right. Stories add context, emotional weight. Think about it. Would you rather have a mass-produced souvenir or a handmade object with a story behind it?
Oh, definitely the one with the story. Like suddenly it becomes this vessel for history, a connection to a person or a place.
Exactly. And, you know, attribution does that for the work we share online. It's not just a random image or a quote. It's connected to a creator, a process, a whole world of inspiration.
Okay, so we've talked about sharing our process, our influences, giving credit to others, but what about talking about our own work?
Ah, yes. Kleon tackles that dreaded question that we all get at parties and networking events.
You mean, so what do you do?
Exactly. And it can be a tough one to answer, especially if you don't have a traditional job title.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like you're
Oh.
trying to sum up your whole creative journey in like 30 seconds.
But Kleon suggests that instead of dreading it, we should see it as an opportunity to tell a story, you know, to connect with someone by explaining what you're passionate about.
I like that. So how do we do that? How do we craft a good elevator pitch about our work?
Well, he says keep it clear, concise, and most importantly, authentic. You know, don't try to fit yourself into a box or use jargon that no one understands. Focus on the essence of what you do and why it matters.
I think it's really tempting to try and impress people with fancy titles or buzzwords.
It is. But people connect with realness. So, you know, if you're still figuring things out, it's okay to say that.
So be honest.
Exactly. And remember this advice when writing your bio, too.
Oh yeah, the bio. Keep it short, sweet, and to the point. And please, no overused buzzwords.
Right. No gurus or ninjas unless that's literally what you are.
Unless you have a black belt in marketing or something.
Exactly. Just let your work speak for itself. And speaking of letting your work speak for itself, Kleon reminds us that sharing online is only part of the equation.
Okay, so what's the other part?
He encourages us to go beyond the digital realm and connect with people in real life.
You mean like actually meeting up with people in
They-
person?
Exactly. Attend conferences, workshops, go to meetups, grab coffee with someone you've connected with online. It's about turning those digital relationships into real-world friendships and collaborations.
Oh, I totally agree. Some of my most valuable creative relationships started online, but they really deepened once we started connecting offline.
Right. There's something magical about that face-to-face interaction.
Absolutely. So don't be afraid to reach out, attend events, and cultivate those real-life connections. But let's be real, those connections, both online and off, sometimes lead to criticism.
Yeah, it comes with the territory.
So how do we handle that? The inevitable negativity.
Well, Kleon offers some great advice on how to deal with the critics and the trolls.
Okay, hit me with it.
First and foremost, remember that you are not obligated to engage with everyone.
It's okay to be selective.
You get to choose who you let into your creative space.
Okay, I like that. It's about taking control of our own creative ecosystem.
Exactly. And this ties in with another key message. Protect your vulnerable areas.
Oh, that's so important. Just like we protect our physical belongings, we also need to protect our creative and emotional well-being.
Right. Be discerning about what you share and with whom. But sometimes the harshest critic isn't even an external one, right?
You mean that voice in our own heads?
Exactly. That inner critic that tells us we're not good enough. Kleon reminds us to be mindful of that inner troll and to challenge those negative thoughts.
Okay, but that's easier said than done, right?
It takes practice. But remember, it's okay to ask for help. Talk to friends, mentors, maybe a therapist. Having a support system makes a world of difference.
That's so true. Okay, let's switch gears for a bit and talk about ambition. I love how Kleon reframes this word like it's not a dirty word.
He does. He challenges the idea that wanting success or recognition is somehow selling out. He sees ambition as a natural part of being a creator.
So how do we balance ambition with authenticity?
Well, Kleon says it's important to define our own version of success. What does success look like to you? Is it about money, fame, or just creating work that feels meaningful?
Okay, so get clear on your goals and then make choices that align with those goals.
Exactly. And that might mean saying no to some opportunities, even if they seem tempting on the surface.
Tough, but necessary.
And remember, success isn't a zero-sum game.
Right. Someone else's success doesn't diminish our own.
Supporting each other is so important. It's like creating a rising tide that lifts all boats.
I love that analogy. Okay, but even with all the support in the world, we all face challenges and setbacks. It's part of the journey.
Oh, absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Hmm.
And Cleon reminds us that it's okay to change course, to pivot,
Yeah.
to experiment, and even take breaks.
Yes. Those mini sabbaticals are lifesavers, even if it's just for a few hours.
Anything that helps you recharge and come back with fresh eyes.
Okay, this has been such a great conversation, but before we move on, is there anything else you want to highlight from this section?
I think it's crucial to emphasize Cleon's point about lifelong learning. It's about staying curious, constantly expanding your horizons, challenging yourself, and embracing the beginner's mindset.
I love that. It's like no matter how experienced we become, there's always more to learn and discover.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful things about Cleon's approach is that he sees creativity as a force for good. It's about connection, growth, and making a positive impact on the world.
It's inspiring, right?
It is. And it makes you realize that even small acts of creativity can make a difference.
Totally. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground in this section, from being a fan to dealing with criticism to the importance of lifelong learning.
Hmm.
What are some key takeaways you want our listener to remember?
Well, first, remember that you're not alone. We're all in this together. Connect with other creators, support each other, and build a community.
And don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Right. Share your work, share your process, and share what inspires you. But remember to protect your vulnerable areas. It's okay to be selective about what you share and who you share it with.
And celebrate each other's successes.
Yes.
Someone else's success doesn't take away from your own. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to wrap up our deep dive into Show Your Work. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Show Your Work, I keep thinking about how Kleon makes this whole creative process feel, I don't know, less scary.
Yeah. He really takes the pressure off, doesn't he?
He does. It's like he's giving us permission to, like, be messy, to experiment, to not be perfect, you know?
Totally.
Hmm.
He's all about embracing those imperfections, like the stumbles, the experiments, the aha moments, even the oops moments.
Because those are all part of the process.
They are. And they're often the most interesting parts. Like, think about watching a cooking show, right?
Yeah.
Are you more interested in seeing the chef effortlessly create a perfect dish? Or are you more engaged when they make a mistake, they have to improvise?
Oh, definitely the second one. Like, I want to see how they problem solve.
Exactly. It's those little imperfections, those moments of vulnerability that make the whole process relatable and engaging.
And it reminds us that, even the most accomplished creators are human.
Yes, they make mistakes, they have doubts, they have those moments of, what am I even doing?
And sharing those moments, it not only makes us feel less alone, but it can actually be really helpful for other people to see.
Totally. It's like it gives them permission to not be perfect too.
And to embrace the journey.
Embrace the journey. I love that. It's not about reaching some mythical destination of perfection. It's about enjoying the ride, learning along the way, and connecting with others who are on a similar path.
And that's really what Show Your Work is all about, right? It's not about self-promotion or seeking validation. It's about making a contribution, sharing our unique perspective.
Yeah, it's like we all have something valuable to offer, whether it's a skill, an insight, a story, or even just a different way of looking at things. And when we share those gifts, we create a ripple effect.
Okay, I love that. Like, those ripples of inspiration can spread far and wide.
They can. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to challenge our listeners to take action.
Yes. What's one small thing you can share from your work today? What insight, what process, what inspiration are you holding on to that you could put out into the world?
Don't overthink it. Seriously. Don't wait for perfection. Just take that first step, share something you're passionate about, and see what happens. You never know who you might connect with or inspire.
Yeah, you might be surprised by the positive feedback you receive.
And the connections you make. Remember, it's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about adding your unique voice to the chorus. Your perspective matters.
And who knows, you might even inspire someone else to share their work, creating this amazing chain reaction of creativity.
Exactly. Creativity is contagious. When we share our work, we inspire others, and we invite them to inspire us in return. It's this beautiful cycle.
And we'd love to see what you create. Share your work online using the hashtag #ShowYourWork. We'll be looking out for it.
So keep creating, keep sharing, and keep diving deep. The world needs your unique voice.
That's it for our deep dive into Austin Kleon's Show Your Work. We hope you enjoyed this exploration as much as we did. Keep those creative fires burning.